I don't know.
Running. I do
I love
dance
running.
cardio. I don't know.
I love running, but I'm also very, very slow. And but the thing is, I got stamina, so like I can run slow for distances.
Sexy.
Yeah, I
I do Amanda Klutz dance cardio. And I love it. I love every second of it. She's so much fun. Anyways, okay. We
um
need to hurry this one up because I'm starving and Evan is making dinner and it smells amazing.
okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Thoughts Shared, Souls Bared. I am Katie,
I'm Jill.
and today we're going to be talking about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, another one of our favorite musical TV shows. And this one hits
Otherwise known as
particularly.
what my ex used to say after we broke up in high school.
Oh my gosh. This show hits particularly close to home because it takes place in West Covina, California.
I thought you were
I
going to say
know.
because Jill's mentally ill.
No. West Covina,
Which is why it hits
California.
close to home for me. But
No, mine like geographically hits close to home because West Covina, California is close to home. It's like
mine is like
actually close to home.
Mine is like I am mentally ill, so this hits really close to home.
Oh my gosh. For any context, I grew up going to school in Covina. Um, and I have friends who live in West Covina. I still have friends in the Covina area. I just grew up, all of the things happening were in that area. So the fact that they made a TV show that was based in West Covina was very weird for me. So the premise of the show is Rebecca Bunch. She leaves her high profile lawyer job in New York City, which is
Wasn't she
when
like
they
about to like get a
make
promotion?
partner. She was gonna like make
Yeah,
partner
that's what it
or
was.
like junior partner or something like that. And
Mhm.
she walks outside because she's like about to have a panic attack. And then she sees the billboard, "When's the last time you were truly happy?" which is something that I make myself think about all the time. It's
Yeah.
maybe not the best for my mental health. Um, and and then she like looks across the street and man from her youth is there, Josh Chan, and he says he's moving back home. He's
Short
moving,
King of Kings.
played by Vincent Rodriguez III, who I
I
saw in the
love him.
national tour of Anything Goes. Apparently,
Ah, I love that.
he was
He's
just
so
like in on the
cute.
ensemble.
He's
He
so
was just
stinking cute.
he was just in the ensemble. But I've also seen him at events before too. Like I was at
Mm.
opening night of something at the Amundsen, and he was there. And then I think I saw him at, I don't know. If the weird thing about living here is if you go to like theatery events, you see people like that around.
Yeah.
And so, she sees Josh Chan. He says, "Oh, I'm actually moving back to West Covina, California, 917
Oh,
something something. Are you okay?"
that hurts. That was like a wine burp. It hurts so
Ew.
bad.
Ew.
Anyways,
Anyway,
disgusting.
so she sees Josh Chan, and after he says, "I tried to be an actor, but I'm gonna move home to West Covina, 917 something something." I want to say 24, but I
Yep.
think that's just regular Covina. And he she's like, "When's the last time I was really happy?" And then she's like, "Ah, yes, South Pacific at that theater camp with Josh Chan. I must move to
Like
Covina.
freshman year of high school. Like
I must move to West Covina." And she does this whole song and dance number, and the thing is, it's supposed to be in like New York City, and it is very clearly downtown LA. Um, because
you
New
can
York City,
see, and that's the thing is it always makes me laugh whenever like someone is filming something that's supposed to be in New York City and you can tell that it's not New York City.
you
Like
can you can
blatantly
tell
obvious.
you can tell because LA Metro buses are orange and New York City buses are not orange.
No.
There's like several that drive by, and I'm like, that's Los Angeles. It's very clearly LA.
And also this may make me sound stupid, but depending on where in New York she is, the streets are very wide, like where she's at in that moment.
Yeah.
Like New York City streets are not that wide.
No,
I
New
know
York City
that
streets
for a
were built
fact.
around horses, and LA streets are built around cars. And so she does this whole song about West Covina, and at the very beginning she goes, "In my heart I feel a fire, cause I'm heading to the pride of the Inland Empire," which
Yeah.
West Covina is not in the Inland Empire. 2 seconds of Google research could have told you that West Covina is actually in the San Gabriel Valley, which, you know, you just have to like go over the hill to Pomona, and then I guess Pomona isn't even technically the Inland Empire. But, you know, I mean, it was close, but no cigar. Everybody around here was like, no, it's not. There's like this weird thing about the Inland Empire around here. I'm gonna get like really nerdy about Southern California.
Oh my god.
About the LA.
We're gonna spend this whole episode is Katie talking about geography in California. That's all.
Not even California geography, just the LA metropolitan area geography, because the LA metropolitan area goes far out into like the deserty area. I mean, not quite, but it extends. So there's this like, and I feed into it as well. People kind of like look down their noses at the Inland Empire, which is wild because like I live in the Inland Empire and I'm not a fan of it. It's a lot of warehouses and oh my god, Jill, that's so much you've drank. So I live in the Inland Empire and it is a lot of warehouses and suburbs and chain restaurants and freeways, and it's very recently developed. So there's all of these like, I don't know. The only way I can explain it is it's a lot of beige. So it's not my favorite place in the world. But then like just over the hill, you get into like after you get into Pomona, and then you go into Covina and West Covina. It's like the very edge of the SGV. Anyway, there's a it's like an elitist kind of deal where people look down at the Inland Empire. But that's just how it is. Yeah. So the fact that like people I know who live in Covina hearing like the pride of the Inland Empire, they got upset. They didn't want to be associated with Inland Empire trash.
It's so funny because false. I feel like so many states have that. Like, because I'm from Kentucky, no one really talks about Eastern Kentucky. Because like if you're from Kentucky, you don't really talk about Eastern Kentucky because it's like it's basically West Virginia. Like Eastern Kentucky is basically West Virginia. It's not the best place in the world. It's not where I want to spend my time. I try not. I don't think I've ever been to Eastern Kentucky other than to drive through it. Like I went there maybe once for like a dance competition or something. But even then it was barely Eastern Kentucky. But it's like, and then like here in Virginia, Evan and I were just talking about this earlier, in Virginia it's like Nova and then the rest of it. You have like Nova, which is like DC area, and then you have like everything else, because I guess, yeah, that's pretty much how it is. I think every state has some version of it. I think it's so funny.
Did I tell you my dad was born in Virginia?
Yes, you did.
I did. And then he moved to North Carolina, and then when he was like 5, they moved to LA.
Yeah, I knew about like North Carolina. I didn't know like, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so.
Anyways, Crazy ex-girlfriend.
So she moves to West Covina to pursue Josh Chan, but she ends up entangled with a man named Greg. Last name I forget. And it's played by
Santino Fontana.
Who I loved seeing on my TV.
Him so much. I love him so much.
And we see
he makes me the happiest.
He's just like he's like a curmudgeon, and he's like, I want to date this girl, but she's clearly in love with my best friend, but she's
Yeah.
still dating me.
My favorite thing about Greg is I feel like he came in and they wrote him to be ironic. Like they wrote him to know that he is like not better than these people, and he's just like, life, you know. Like it's literally like that is literally the vibe of him, and I love it so
He works
much.
The thing is, he works at this place called Home Base,
Which I think is the cutest bar ever.
Well, it's based on Big League Dreams, I think is the name of the place, which is like this chain baseball field thing around here.
I need to go.
And there is one in West Covina.
I need to go. I need to go.
My friend who lives in West Covina, she used to live like right across the street from it. It was wild.
I love that.
And then so that's where he works, and it becomes this like bar. I don't think it's like that.
I think it's more of like a, I don't know, I wouldn't even consider
it's a sports bar.
Right, like I would barely consider it a sports bar because it's like like a restaurant
pub
with a bar. Like it's like, you know.
Yeah. And then Rebecca joins this law firm that she's clearly overqualified for. And they
know that.
And then Paula, played by Donalyn Champlin, she's like, what is this girl after? What does she need? Why is she here? She's skeptical at the start. She's like, this girl went to Harvard. She's about to make partner. And now she's here. Make it make sense. And then she finds out it's for...
I love her because the amount of times that she's just like I can't even describe the word for it. Like she's just always like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing?
She's
What's
skeptical
happening?
every time
it's not
she
even like skeptical.
up...
It's like beyond skeptical, I feel like it's like how you have Rebecca. I kept wanting to say Rachel.
Well, yeah, because it's played by Rachel Bloom and Rebecca Bunch. I mix them up all the time too.
Right. So like you have Rebecca who is like chasing after Joshua Chan. And you have Greg who's like, okay, so she's clearly in love with Josh. That's gonna be a no for me. Cannot date this woman because she's in love with Josh. And then you have like her chasing after Josh, and then you have Paula. Oh my god, like I'm losing my mind. And then you have Paula who's like chasing after Rebecca, trying to figure out what the fuck she's doing.
She's like, well, she's momming, and then
and then Josh is just sitting there like, oh my god, this is so cool. You're like here in West Covina. That's fucking nuts. Like he's so stupid that he genuinely is like, this is such a coincidence. We just saw each other on the streets of New York, and I mentioned that I was moving back to West Covina, and here you are in West Covina.
He's not the brightest bulb.
And then White Josh comes in and he's like, this is all.
I love White Josh. David
White Josh is my favorite.
I love him.
My favorite character is Gabrielle Ruiz's character.
Valencia
is my favorite character. I don't care what anybody says. Okay. Valencia is my absolute favorite character.
There is a moment, and I want to say season 3 or season 4, that has to do with Valencia, and I was like, okay, this was written like straight out of a therapy session somebody needed to have with me, in which Valencia and like clearly the way I've talked about it, the beginning, like this whole geography of LA thing, it's probably comes across clear. There's this whole idea of Valencia thinks she's better than the townies.
Yeah,
she's like, I don't, like, I'm better than this. I'm like, I'm not going to be here my entire life. What are you talking about? Like, I'm so much better than you. And then somebody, I want to say it's Josh, but I can't remember who, is like, hey, like, these people are your friends. They're people who love you. They don't see anything wrong with it. Why are you putting it all down? And I'm like, I literally had to be like, shit. That was about me. Somebody overheard some conversation I've had with anybody who's ever known me, because like, yeah, I mean, I definitely have been like, yeah, I'm too good for this place. Like, West Covina, of course I'm better than this.
See, and you say that and you're like, this is like straight over therapy sessions for me. And I'm sitting here like, whenever I heard them talking about that, I was like, no, Valencia, get the fuck out of there. I was like, if you think you're too good for it, get the fuck out of there. Like, that's literally how my brain works. Like, that's because that's what I did. So I'm just like, but it was to go to college. This is a little bit different.
But like the thing
And
is,
then like once I'm done with college, I'm like, I'm not staying in Kentucky longer than I have to. Like, I'm gonna stay there until I make enough money to get the fuck out. Like, that's my plan.
and that's the thing. But I think that's also something that like Valencia would have done, because Valencia's like, I'm not here forever, but yet she kept staying because of something, and that's like the kind of like stagnant feature I feel like I'm in right now. Because yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to live here for the rest of my life. Or okay, the arc that Valencia has is she moves to New York and she lives in a shoebox apartment, and then
which I love. I love that.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, she moves back.
I'm pretty sure she does.
4. And I don't know. I love California so much. It is my home. It is everything to me, but I so desperately want to move to New York at some point in my life. You know, I thought I would be there now, you know. If you asked me 10 years ago where I would be in 10 years, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm living in New York." I'm still living with my parents in the middle of a global pandemic.
Naturally.
But if you ask me if I think I see the rest of my life in New York, I don't know, because like all of my family, all of my friends are here. So, and I love it here, but I don't not see myself moving back at some point in my life. Like I definitely see it as an option, but I want to see what else is out there. And so having Valencia be that in this show, I think was really important for me. Like it really hit home for me. I don't know. There was that one. At first, I was like, oh, I don't like Valencia. Like, you know, she's whatever. But then, like, in later seasons, I was like, oh my God, is she me? Am I her? Are we the same?
And I absolutely understand that. Like, I totally get that. And so it's like, but I am such like a person where I want, and this is gonna make me sound like a whiny bitch. I don't care. This is how I feel, and I'm gonna fucking say it. I want so badly for there to be more storylines where it's like, and like I'm thinking like back to like even like Hallmark movies, like shit like that, where it's like, oh, they moved to this big city and they moved back to their hometown for like a month and they're like, damn it, you know what? I'm gonna stay here forever. I love this. And like I hate that because that's not how I am. That's not how there's haha, I did it. That's like not sorry, there's a fucking gnat. I just killed it. I want more storylines where it's like they moved to New York and they're like happy there and they're like thriving there and they just stay there forever because that's what I want. Like I'm so sick of like the storyline where it's like, oh, and then they move back and they're like, oh, this is where I should have been all along. And it's like, but that's not how everyone should, like, I don't think that that's how everyone is.
Absolutely not. And I think the difference between like your upbringing and my upbringing is I grew up near a very large city. You know,
yeah.
I grew up in a metropolitan area of a major city in the world. So like I had access to that as often as I wanted, as much as I needed. Like I went to Cal State LA and I still lived at home, you know, like I was in the city, I was interning in the city. So having LA, it's different rather than going back to like a small town in Nebraska or a small town in Michigan.
My thing is also funny because like I grew up in Kentucky and like I always say that like I never actually tell people what my actual hometown is because I don't feel like that was my hometown. I always say it's like it's the biggest city.
Yeah.
From it because I live 20 minutes from a major city in the state. And so one of two major cities in the state. But I always say that that's my hometown because that's where I've spent most of my life. Like the majority of my time that I've spent in Kentucky was in that city. And it's like, that's a big tourist city. It's a big, like whoever goes to visit Kentucky goes to Lexington and Louisville. And where I live so close to Lexington, it's just like, that was always what I considered my hometown. And now whenever I go back, there's not one day where I'm not like driving into Lexington just to drive into Lexington. Yeah. And it's just I've never fit in a small town. That's never ever been what I want ever. Like I could see myself having like another house in like a smaller town in like Connecticut or upstate New York or something, but never ever could I see myself in like Midwestern suburbia.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on, you know, where you grew up.
Right.
Because obviously I grew up with LA in my backyard essentially.
Right.
It wasn't like I wasn't near a big city. Because Los Angeles is one of the biggest cities in the world.
Right.
So I had that. So that's
I live 20 minutes from the horse capital of the world. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that plays into why I understand Valencia moving back to West Covina, because West Covina is 20 miles away from Los Angeles. So she still has like access to it. It's in LA County, all of these things. But I did not think I would be spending this much time talking about Valencia.
I didn't either, but like I love Valencia. She's my favorite.
I do too. Valencia, and then
I want to talk about White Josh.
Hold on, can we talk about Heather for a second?
I love Heather.
How much I love Heather. She's so great.
Awesome.
Like her arc went completely different than I thought it would ever. She like randomly marries Hector, and then has,
which I love them. Like perfect.
She becomes the surrogate for oh my god, Daryl's baby, which Rachel donates the egg, or not Rachel, Rebecca donates her eggs for.
Right. That show goes through so many different like twists and turns. It's fucking nuts.
It's wild.
Like Valencia realizing she's a lesbian. Like I loved that. That was one of my favorite things on the planet. I loved it.
Oh my god. And then White Josh just being like, everybody cool? Everyone okay? Like I'm gonna go be a musclehead, but also be like the only sane person here.
Oh, Daryl. I love him in Daryl.
You're questioning your sexuality. Sure.
Let's try it out, man.
Let's try it out, man. I'm gay. Like, I love White Josh. And the thing is, he does look. He is White Josh. Like he looks exactly like Vincent Rodriguez, but white. I love it. It's so funny.
I feel like if you were to tell me that, like if you told me that the person that plays White Josh could be Tommy Bracco though at the same time, I would be like, you know what? I could see it. And I think it's just a similar
looks
build.
Wise?
I think it's a similar build.
That's because they're both Broadway dancers. Like,
but they're shorter.
Beefy.
They're shorter
Broadway
and
dancers.
beefy. Yeah. But it's the height thing. Like the height is what it is because like Tommy Bracco is one of my favorite Broadway dancers. I love Tommy Bracco.
He's great.
He's amazing. I was so upset because when I went and saw Pretty Woman, it was the 1 week he was doing a chorus line and I was so pissed.
He was the only one that I actually ended up seeing that was supposed to be in their role.
I mean, like
him and Jason Daniely.
I almost was like, you didn't see Orphan, but then I was like, oh wait.
No, Orphan and Andy Carl were on vacation.
Right, like I was like, wait. It took me
Sam Parks got sick, like in
the
middle of her first number.
Meanwhile, I saw like everyone except Tommy Bracco.
Nah. And then Eric, is his last name Anderson? Mm-hmm. He was out of the show too.
Was he
for some reason? Yes,
he was so good in that show.
It was understudy central. He was the only. It was Tommy Bracco and Jason Daniely were the only two people who were.
I love that because it's like I wish I could see a show with so many understudies on. Like I love that because it's so much fun.
It had to be the show I've seen with the most understudies.
Really?
It was also like the worst experience I've ever had.
Let me tell you, don't say that.
No, there were drunk women behind me screaming.
Okay, that's fair. That's very fair. Let me tell you. It's not just
I didn't like the show. I mean, I didn't, but God.
Right. Well, I love Pretty Woman. It's like it's a soft spot for me. Like it's like a guilty pleasure thing for me. But I we're going so off topic from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but I need to discuss this real quick. When I saw Waitress for the first time, it was when Sarah Bareilles was supposed to be in it. I say supposed to be because she wasn't on that night. She had the flu. And my parents,
happens.
I know, my parents bought me these tickets for my birthday. It was like the weekend before my birthday. We were going to New York to see Wicked and Waitress and all that jazz. Not the musical. It's just, I was just saying and all that jazz. And and
The turn of phrase.
Yeah. And my dad was so excited to see Sarah Bareilles in Waitress. My dad was thrilled because he loves Sarah Bareilles. I was raised to worship Sarah Bareilles, and I still do to this day. And so like we get into the theater, we get our playbills, we sit down, and I open it and I see the slip, and I was like, oh, my dad is gonna be so sad. like I looked over at him and I was like, don't look at the slip, don't look at this. Like, I was like so scared for him. And then he opens it and he goes, what the hell is this? And I will never forget it, because then at intermission, he was like, you know what? It's okay. And I was like, okay, good. I was like, I was trying to gauge like how he felt about it. He's like, it's okay. And I was like, okay, good. And then we get up to stage door and my dad looks at Stephanie Torrance and goes, you belted the shit out of that theater.
Oh my
And
God.
I will never forget that moment, because the amount of like disappointment on my dad's face at the beginning of this experience, from like not getting to see Sarah Bareilles to him telling Stephanie Torrance that at stage door, was like the best moment of my life. Like, I was like, this is my peak. Like, nothing better will ever happen to me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, it was so funny. And my dad crying in the middle of She Used to Be Mine. That was also really good.
Oh my gosh.
That's what happens if you
Anyway.
raise 4 daughters.
But back to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
What other characters? So there's Daryl,
I love Daryl.
is the
Getting By is one of my favorite songs.
It was great. It was a great song. Daryl is the head of White Feather and Associates.
Feather.
I don't remember.
Because he's like, what? I'm like,
he's like, I'm 1/16 Cherokee. And I'm like, oh my God, that's such a white thing to do.
Which is like, I love whenever there are characters like that, because I'm like, that is so realistic. Like, I'm like, it's so, oh my God, like the amount of people in my life that are essentially like that is so funny to me.
It's such a white person thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's anyway.
What I love the most about this show is the recasting of Greg.
Okay, hold on. Before we get there,
yeah,
we have to talk about Nathaniel, played by Scott Michael Foster.
Yes, because I love Scott Michael Foster.
I love him so much. I love Nathaniel. So he's so angry at the fact that he's attracted to Rebecca. He's so mad at it. Like, ah!
He's like, I'm supposed to like models. He's like, what is this?
And I honestly loved the two of them together. That relationship, I was like, that was it. But I love Nathaniel. There was an episode where everyone's trapped in a car with someone you don't want to be trapped in a car with.
Yes.
And it's like Rebecca and Daryl, I think, are going to like Irvine to get some like ribs.
Yeah.
And Josh is with Paula, and they're going out to like San Bernardino to pick up a desk.
Yeah.
And which I'm like, that's a long way to go for a desk. Oh my God. Would not go to San Bernardino to do anything.
Oh my God.
My dad used to work in San Bernardino. And then you have Heather and Nathaniel trapped, and they're going to, I don't know, but Nathaniel has a bag of his housekeeper's, like his childhood housekeeper's ashes. And it's just like, he wants to go put them in the ocean, and their car breaks down, and he just puts them into a drain.
Yes.
Because all drains go to the ocean, so he's like, I guess this works.
He's like, this is it. This is what I'm doing.
But I love
Oh
how
my God.
much Nathaniel changes from like an absolute hard ass to like the biggest softie in the world.
And it's so funny though, because even when he was a hard ass, he wasn't that much of a hard ass. Like even then he was still like this lovable man that you just wanted to like hold and like nurture him. Be like, you're the cutest thing on the planet.
The best way I can explain this, okay, tangent. So I just finished reading this book called The Hating Game, and it's getting turned into a movie with Lucy Hale. And
Is
they
it
just
enemies
finished
to
filming
lovers?
It's very much enemies to lovers. But like the way the character Josh Templeman is in this is how Nathaniel is. And I can't wait to watch this movie. I'm so nervous to watch this movie, but I keep rereading like parts of The Hating Game. I highly recommend you read it. Anyway, so Nathaniel. But yes, the recasting of Greg, let's get into it. The greatest thing I've ever seen on television. Because they recast Santino. I want to know if that was planned, them recasting it.
I think that they said it wasn't originally planned, but it worked out perfectly.
Because Santino was doing Tootsie on Broadway, so he couldn't come to LA to shoot Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So then they cast Skylar Astin as Greg. And when you look at it, you're like, yeah, I can see how that works. And the way they explained it, I thought was genius.
Amazing.
Because the way they did it.
No other show could pull it off the way that they did.
No, because the fact that it's written around mental illness and mental health, I should say, instead of mental illness, is you see things differently when you're in different headspaces. And so for her to see somebody that she loved when she was in a very toxic headspace to come into her life again when she is in a better one or in a different one, I'll say, and see him as a completely different person, literally and figuratively, I think was brilliant. The writers, if that wasn't like planned, the writers did that amazing. Because everyone else is like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just Greg. Greg's over there. Are you okay with seeing Greg? And she's like, I don't see him. Where is he? And it's like, he's right there.
And I wish that like more shows or like more things and like I wish more human beings would talk about the fact that like no matter how old you are, your past doesn't always make you who you are in life. Like that doesn't like you grow so much throughout your entire life. Like recently I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna like continue, I don't hold grudges, it's more so just I have PTSD, but like I'm like, you know, I don't think about these people anymore, so I'm like, you know what, they may be better people now, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah, I was traumatized by them in high school, like friends, not like other stuff, but like friends that like were emotionally abusive in high school to me. I was like, you know what, they're probably way better people now, you know, like we've had time to grow, we're seniors in college now, like I'm sure everything's like better. And then all of a sudden, like, I had like a horrible DM from one of them, and I was like, oh, so I'm the only one then. It's like a better person now. But like there are so many instances where like right now they may not be a better person, but maybe 10 years from now, who's to say that like, you know, because everyone's always changing no matter what your circumstances, everyone changes so much throughout your life that like you see them differently, or you should be seeing people differently from your past than you do now. But like more people need to realize that that's something that happens. Like stop looking at everyone as how they were when you knew them 10 years ago, because it's not who they are anymore. I want to shake all of my family members and say that to them.
I just think it's, I don't know, I think about that recasting and the way Skylar Astin was able to like be Greg. I think it was so great. I thought it was very interesting, and
I love this song.
Skylar Astin.
I love what's the song in the airport with Greg and Rebecca?
Oh, I don't know.
But do you know what I'm talking about? It's like whenever she follows him to the airport or vice versa. I can't remember. and they're like, oh, this is supposed to be the scene where we fall in love and like you're supposed to actually stay with me, and then they're like, but also
we're not good for each other.
Right, like that. I love that song. That's like one of my favorite scenes in the show.
I don't listen to the songs from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I'll watch them in context.
There's a couple that like I used to. There's a couple that like kind of were able to like listen to out of context and like enjoy when I was in high school or something like that. But like now I haven't listened to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend in years. Like it's been a while. I love that song. I'm gonna like go and look at like the discography of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend now, because like now I'm trying to remember which songs I listened to. That one I don't think I ever listened to outside of the show.
No, but the song that Heather sings when she's like, oh, I guess I have to move on from this community college.
That
and she's like,
is the
moment is
scene.
me. It is so
good.
Yes.
Oh my god,
it's so good. But yeah, and then there's the song that I think the character's name is Tim, but it's played by Michael McMillan, who is on this podcast that I listen to called Bigfoot Collectors Club. I don't know, I love him. I'm pretty sure they talk about how like he had never given his wife an orgasm before, and it was like the first time they were like allowed to like say a certain word on television, and I want to say the word is orgasm, and he was like,
oh, I know what you're talking about.
Like on the channel in that time slot, or
it was like if you were like a prime time, like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I remember hearing so much about them being like, no, was it clitoris?
Maybe that might have been
I think it was because orgasm they say all the time. I'm trying to think. It had to have been like a body something. Like it had to have been something to do with a woman's body.
Of course.
Yeah. What'll it be? That's one of the songs from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend I used to listen to all the time. Anything with Santino, I was just listening to all the time.
Santino's like voice, I think, is so beautiful. Like his singing
voice,
his
like he has a very timeless voice.
His speaking voice, his singing voice, everything about his voice.
If you sent me a video if you sent me a green screen video of Santino Fontana acting out Casablanca, I wouldn't question it. Like he looks it, he sounds it, like if you put him in like a black and white movie or something like it, just I wouldn't question it at all, because he looks it, he sounds it, everything about it. Like I don't know, I love him.
Yeah, he's great. What else? I don't know. I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
I love that they had a different theme song for every season.
Yes, I
loved that.
In love. Can't be responsible for my
I was like just looking at that and it reminded me. I was like, oh my god.
Wait, hold on. So season 1 is she was working hard in New York job making dough, but it made her blue. And then season 2 was she's just a girl in love.
Yeah.
When she had her stalker, what was his name? Like Paul? No, that's the actor's name. Paul Welch was the actor.
Yeah.
But her stalker, what was his name?
He's so funny.
He's a writer. He like writes for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The actor.
That's right. Yeah.
Paul.
Pretty sure he's been in Brooklyn Nine-Nine too.
I'm sure. I think
he's been in so many different like random TV shows that I've seen.
Maybe it's not Paul Welch.
Season 3, wasn't it? Where's Rebecca Bunch? Was that the theme song?
I don't think so.
Or is that just the first song in the thing?
I think that's just the first song where they're like, ye old town of West Covina.
Yes.
Trent is the character's name.
Trent. Okay.
Paul. Okay, so it's Paul Welsh, not Welch.
Okay.
That tracks. But it's played by Trent. He was funny.
He was so good. That was a good like plot point.
But when he did his like, I'm just a boy in love.
Yes, it was so good.
And it was full out. Oh my god, I loved it.
I'm trying to think of what other Greg song I listened to. Was it I Could If I Wanted To?
But I could.
No, it's his drinking song. Greg's drinking song. I don't know what it was about the song. I loved that song. The UTI song made me laugh too.
Yes. But then there's the song where oh my god, what is it? When Greg, played by Skylar Astin this time, so season 4, he's singing like all of the things he hates, but he doesn't. He's like, I hate this and this and this, but I don't hate you.
Yeah.
The season 3 theme song was Crazy is when you go off the rails.
Why don't I remember that?
I don't know, because I also thought it was forgettable. I'm not gonna lie, I also thought the season 3 themes. What was the season 4 then?
That's a good question.
Theme song. Oh, it's the other Rebecca's. Meet Rebecca.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the other funny. Rebecca. Now go back to other Rebecca.
Yeah.
And then she would say something insane.
Yes.
I love when TV shows have theme songs. Now everything just has like a theme music. But I like when shows have theme songs. One of my favorite, that she changed it up.
One of my favorite TV shows, it's not necessarily a theme song, but you haven't seen the show, and I wish you had. I need you to watch it so bad, but I know Abby's listening, so she'll know. Brain Dead had like a recap song for every episode, and it was written by Jonathan Coulton. And Colson, Jonathan. Anyways, either way, is one of those. I can't remember his name. But they were so funny every single episode. And it's like you watch the first episode and you're like, oh my god, it's like a serious drama, horror, like dark comedy show. And then like episode 2 starts and it's like, it's basically like, here's what you missed on Glee. And then it's like, but instead of that, it's like a song version of what happened in DC the week before. Like it's so funny. I love it so much. But that made me think of it because like it was different every episode.
I think Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I think the way it became what you thought it wasn't going to be is very interesting, because you hear the words Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, you're like, oh, she's my crazy ex-girlfriend, and it's something. So Donald Glover has a joke where he's like, you never hear guys saying, or you never hear girls saying, I've got a crazy ex-boyfriend, because if you have a crazy ex-boyfriend, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
But you hear guys say all the time crazy ex-girlfriend, so you assume it's about her just being like a cleanie, what men consider crazy, but they actually but the thing is, the show actually digs into like mental health and the fact that
and it talks about why that's such like a fucked up terminology, like why saying crazy ex-girlfriend is so fucked up. And so I love that. Like, I mean, that's really awesome.
And the fact that Josh, Greg, Nathaniel, none of them I don't think ever say, oh, she's my crazy ex-girlfriend. They never use that term to describe her, and I think that's really interesting. But I also love that the show allows her to be friends with these people still, and they all try working and growing together and exploring all of what may not typically be considered like a big deal mental illness. Like Josh at one point starts going to therapy.
Yeah.
And it's like he seems fine, but he's like, I just need to talk to someone about things because I feel angry a lot and I need to work that out.
And one of my favorite things, like along the lines of like mental health and shit, like one of my favorite things is whenever she gets re-diagnosed and like a new diagnosis in the second to last season, I think it's season 3 is when she gets it. And I love that because like I went to like 3 or 4 different therapists when my mom first was like, okay, maybe you do need some help. Like when I was like 17, 18 years old, I went to 3 or 4 different therapists and all of them misdiagnosed me. Like I never once had like a proper diagnosis. And then recently, within the last year or two, I found out like, oh, it's not just anxiety and depression. You literally have PTSD and paranoid personality disorder. Like it's like so much deeper than just like generalized anxiety. And like, and then Rebecca was like, oh, you're bipolar. That was it. And I'm like, okay, but that could mean so many other things. Like, it's like,
Well, at
there's
one
so
point
many
they
other
diagnosed
branches of
her,
things within mental health that people like don't realize.
and she is, what I think is so important is when she is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, they like give her a booklet and they're like, okay, we're going to work on these things, and she's like, okay, whatever will make me happy, or whatever will fix me, and she like completes it all, like she completes the entire workbook, and she's like, am I fixed now? And he's like, no, it's something, like it's gonna be a thing to work with your entire life, like these are just exercises to help you deal with it. You shouldn't have completed the workbook your entire, like, over a week.
Like whenever my doctor always laughs at me because she's like, it is so hard, and she's like, and I always wish more people would talk about this, it is so hard to be type A and have a mental health diagnosis. Because like, and I feel like that's how like Rebecca is in the show, is because like she gets the workbooks and she's like, oh, homework, I'm gonna do it all and I'm gonna like get an A on it. And I'm like, that's literally like how my brain works, because I'm very type A, where I'm like, I have to be doing something at all times in order to like feel like a human being, whereas like that's not healthy. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And so it's like you have to have that downtime, like you have to have that time where you're like, I need to just sit and do literally nothing. And I think that the show like talks about, like, I think that it does it so well, where her doctor, which, who plays her doctor, because I remember seeing it. It's
Was
Jay
it Dr.
Hayden.
Drew?
That's who it is.
Oh.
It's
Why do I
Jay
feel like
Hayden
Dr.
plays
Drew
him.
comes on the show at one point?
I don't maybe he did.
Okay.
But Jay Hayden is the person that gives her like the new diagnosis, like her proper diagnosis. And I love him. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's so funny and he is so like precious. Like I just think that he's so stinking cute. But he's in the movie Undrafted, which I'm trying to get Katie to watch. Because I just love it so much.
He's on it.
But really? Dr. Phil shows up.
That's might be who I'm thinking. I'm like, some TV doctor.
I think that's who you're thinking of. Point. It's Dr. Phil, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like the song in season 1 where it's like it's Patti LuPone plays a rabbi and she's like, because we suffer.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, the amount of
the amount of like giant names that they get in this show is Patti so LuPone, funny to me.
Tova Feldsha.
Like it's like the Broadway version of New Girl. Like, you know what I mean? Because like New Girl always has so many like huge A-list celebrities, and then like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is like, here's all these musical theater people. It's so niche, but as soon as you see them, you're like, oh my god.
I remember listening to or watching an interview with Derek Klena, and he had like, you've seen all of Kimmy Schmidt, right? Is Derek Klena on like an episode of Kimmy Schmidt?
Yeah, I have. He's in like a few of. He has a whole arc in the show. Oh, he's DJ Finger I never Blast. Finished it.
Okay,
it's my favorite part of the show. It's my favorite plot point of the show.
He was in this interview. He was saying like, "Oh, you know, I probably should be on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, considering I grew up in West Covina." And I was like, so the entire like 3rd and 4th season, I'm like, he should show up, and he never did. And I was like, all right.
I wish he did though, because he would be so good in it. Like he would have killed it. Because I didn't realize, this is gonna sound mean. I don't mean it to be mean. I just like genuinely like didn't pay as much attention to Derek Klena as I wish I had. His range, like he's amazing. Like his like comedic timing, his like he's got really great range. And I never realized that until I saw him in Kimmy Schmidt. And I was like, he's funny. Like he is like hilarious. And I wish more people talked about him in Kimmy Schmidt because it's so good. Like those are the episodes I go back and watch the most because he's so good. He does like a mockumentary type of a thing in the show. And well, he thinks it's real. Like his character's like, this is a documentary. And he's talking about his favorite DJ, who happens to be the man who kidnapped Kimmy Schmidt and 4 other people and like, kept them in an underground bunker. I love John Hamm so much. But it happens to be John Hamm, and so like his favorite DJ on the planet is John Hamm's character, who was a DJ in the show. But he's like trying to clear his name and say that he didn't actually do any of this stuff. And it's genuinely the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it is hilarious. Like, now I want to go and rewatch it because it's so fucking funny. And they made it an actual documentary. Like, they literally made the documentary.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. I think it's called like Party Monster or something like that.
And Derek Klena is the DJ?
So he's like this like up and coming DJ, and he's the one making the documentary to clear John Hamm's character's name.
Oh my god. The weird thing about Derek Klena...
You need to watch it. It's hilarious.
The weird thing about Derek Klena is, like, I personally don't know him or his family, but, like, my close friends do. Like, grew up and, like, did theater and dance and stuff with that whole family. So I'm, like, we're, like, 2 degrees separated. It's weird. And when I was in, like, 3rd grade, we went to go see a production of, like a local community production, my whole class did, of Big River. And apparently he was in it. Like, that's what my friends told me later. Like, oh yeah, that was the theater group that we went to go see, and yeah, he was in it. It's weird. Amazing. It's wild. Anyways. And then so when I went to go see Anastasia on Broadway, I was like, this is too close to comfort. And then I saw it again. And then I saw it again with a friend I grew up with, and she was like, yeah, that's weird, but like, we still want to see the show. And then I went to go see Jagged Little Pill, and I'm like, this is so weird. And like I've seen, and like it's weird.
It's always so funny because like the only like connection to like a Broadway person I have from like where I'm from is Colton Ryan, and I love him so much. I think he's so good and he's so stinking cute. But like I'm so glad that I've seen him in a couple things now, because like I want to see Girl from the North Country. I've heard that it's not the best, but I want to see it. I really want to see it because the cast is amazing. Like it's such a good cast. And also I just want to hear all of them sing Bob Dylan songs, because I love when like real singers sing Bob Dylan songs. But I'm so glad that I've seen him in like the Scapa, which is like a little art school in Lexington, Kentucky. Like I'm so glad I got to see him in like The Music Man, and I saw him in West Side Story a couple summers ago, which was, he's such a good Tony. I could talk about his Tony for hours. He's so good. But I love him to death. I could squish him all day. Love him.
Yeah. Is there anything else on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend that we're missing?
I think we hit like the basics. Like I think we hit like
we talked about
the good shit.
Every character. Paula.
Brittany Snow showed up. We didn't talk.
Oh, she did for a little bit. She was just like a recurring character. She's in the show.
I love her.
She is.
I was watching Hairspray recently, and I was like, I love her. That's all I could say. Like I was like, I love her. I love her so much.
She's good in Hairspray.
She is. Amber's always been a dream role of mine, though, so I've got a soft spot for anyone that plays Amber. But
twist, mashed potato mumbo.
I used to do that all the time when I was a kid. Like I would just walk around doing that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Show that hits close to home. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is like the one show where is one of the few shows, I should say, that I would just start watching it, and then my dad would start just like coming in the room a little bit and being like, that's funny. And then he would just like sit down and watch it with me at one point. He'd be like, all right, I'm gonna watch this, I guess.
My dad and we have like weird like my dad has such different taste than I do in most things, but there are like a few things that like my dad and I really vibe with, like both of us do. Brain Dead was one of those things. My dad really loved watching Brain Dead. I think it's just because he had a crush on Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which valid. Same. But I remember the amount of times that my dad and I would watch it together, and there's like a scene, I think I've talked about it on here, but there's a scene with salami and chocolate and sex, and my dad watched it with me, and he was just like, he was like, what is this? What? Like he literally could not even like think of like a proper way to express what he was thinking, and I was like, not like I can't blame you. Like I absolutely don't blame you. I mean, Entertainment Weekly called it the weirdest sex scene ever shown on television, which is probably absolutely correct. But yeah, my dad watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend with me though a little bit. He loved Heather. Heather was like his favorite. He thought she was so funny.
Heather is funny.
She is. I love her.
She's so dry and just sarcastic.
Yeah. I was like,
and then
what about Valencia?
Then she has her starfish, like Estrella.
Yes. Like I remember my dad was like, so like every time he would be in the room when I was watching it, he would just talk like he loved Heather, and I was like, okay, what about Valencia though? Because like I love Valencia, and he's like, yeah, she's fine, and I'm like, I guess my opinions are invalid. That's neat. Like, love that for me.
Oh my gosh.
But really, I'm just like obsessed with Gabrielle Ruiz. I love her.
I like walked by her at the opening night.
She's so beautiful.
I like walked by her at the opening night of Come From Away at the Amundsen. I was waiting for like the house doors to open or something. I was by myself for some reason. And I was like walking past because I needed to get something or I needed to go somewhere, and she just like walks past, and I'm like, I know that face. Do I know that person? And then by the time she passes, like, oh, it's a girl from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
I feel like the amount of times that like I'm on the streets of New York and I see someone that looks familiar, I'm like, I know that person, but like I don't know them. It's just like a Broadway actor.
But the thing is, okay, something I love so much about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and we talked about it in the like intro episode a couple episodes ago, is that Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is full of people that look like West Covina.
Like they're just normal people. Like they're just
everyone looks like somebody. They just look like people you'd find on the street. I mean, obviously they're all gorgeous, but they're also that's like very part normal of it. There's looking.
That's like in the first few episodes, like they talk about how like Valencia doesn't look like a real person because like she's like the hottest person in the show. Like she's so beautiful. I love her. Like I want to marry her, but that's.
Do you remember in like season 4, Paula has like a heart attack?
Yeah. Remember when Paula had an abortion?
Yes. I was like, Paula went through some shit.
She did. She went through it, which I loved. I hate saying, I shouldn't say it like that. I was gonna say I loved when she had an abortion. I shouldn't say it like that. Not what I mean. But I love that they had that in the show because it showed that most women don't want to have an abortion. Like most women do it out of necessity or just like because they have like they just need to. Like they just can't be pregnant.
Yeah, and she's like, I already have 2 kids. They're older. It was.
She's like, and I'm older. Like this isn't something that like I want for myself. So it's like I love that.
And she was going to law school.
She was like, and trying to better her future. There's I hate to bring SVU back into this, but there's like a line in an episode of SVU. It's a really recent episode. But the character Kat, like she's talking about how like, okay, well, all women deserve the right to like, you know, choose if they want to have an abortion. And Carisi, he was like, well, okay, but like most women that I know don't want to have an abortion. Like they don't like actively want to. And she turns into this whole thing where it's like pro-abortion, and I'm like, but I don't think anyone that's ever like genuinely pro-choice is pro-abortion. Like I've never met anyone who is. Because it's like no one like is looking to like end every pregnancy ever. Like that's so fucked up. Like
it's definitely a decision that I don't think most people want to make.
No
one wants to be in a situation where you have to make that choice.
Right. Because it's like that's a part of like, first of all, not to like get like all technical and shit, but that's like a part of you. Like that's like a huge part of you as a human being.
And it's both, it can be both emotional trauma, but it's also like physical trauma if you depending on what route you take with it, whether it's medical or if it's like operational procedural, I don't know.
Procedural, whatever it is. Yeah, I don't
require surgery.
we're not doctors.
No. No,
We're
I'm also not a mental
communications
health
people.
I'm also not a mental health professional, so I may have said
Yeah.
some things in here that were just like, Katie, you probably
Right,
need to
like
like
if
take a
we
few
said
steps back.
anything, please like DM us or something and like hold us accountable. Like if we said anything that's genuinely fucked up, like let us know, hold us accountable, because
Yeah. But yeah, so it can cause trauma because like you could be like medical issues, and if you decide on like a surgical route, like it's also expensive, and I don't know, nobody wants to be in a situation like that.
no, not at all.
I can't, or at least I can't imagine anybody wants to be in a situation like that.
Yeah, like no one's going out and getting pregnant to have an abortion. Like I don't know anyone who would do that.
But going back to when Paula has a heart attack, I think what was so important about that is heart attacks on TV are usually A, a man, B, a man grabbing his left arm and then immediately falling. Which is like, yeah, I mean, I guess a heart attack can happen like that. But Paula was having like a walking heart attack. There was like smells and tiredness and all of these situations where it's like, oh, I guess male and female heart attacks are different. And it's important to see women have heart attacks because I don't know, you don't really see women have heart attacks on TV.
Right. And it's also along the same lines as like a lot of times on TV shows, like the way that they portray heart attacks, it's also very similar to a panic attack. So like someone who could be having a panic attack could be like, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. But they're two very different things, but they have very similar symptoms.
And that's something that I think they did show, because they're like, oh, she's stressed out because she's getting ready for like her finals of law school. And I think that them showing that was very important, just like them showing Rebecca, like at one point Rebecca takes a couple too many pills.
Yeah.
On a plane, and it's
with alcohol.
So I think the way on the surface, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is very much like cotton candy fun, but it gets deep and it gets important. And I think it's a phenomenal show. Also, I love that Rachel Bloom and Aline Brosh McKenna were like, we only want 4 seasons. Like, this is the story we want to tell, and it's only going to take us 4 seasons, and we just pray that we get to 4 seasons. And then like the CW was like, do you want a 5th? And they're like, no.
The CW is always so funny to me, because if you pitch a show to the CW and they think it could get even a little bit of traction, they will give you a 20-season contract. Like the CW is so like gung-ho about everything. Like they are so, and I think that was like the perfect like people to take it to. Like I don't think that show could have lasted on NBC or Fox or CBS.
Well, it started out
maybe CBS, but
it started out on either Showtime or HBO. Is where they made the pilot, and then that network didn't want to continue it, and so then they were just, I was listening to some interview with Rachel Bloom, and I cannot remember what podcast it was on. It was definitely on a podcast though, and she was talking about how they were taking it from like network to network to network to network to network, and she at the same time she was also like getting married, and so she was like double stressed. It was a lot for her, but it eventually worked. It was also like the lowest rated show on the CW, but the fact that they kept renewing it, I think, is great, because they had a small but loyal fan base.
We say lowest rated show on the CW, but Legends of Tomorrow was probably the lowest rated show on the CW, because I don't know. I'm pretty sure that show is still going, and I don't know how. But like it's an extension of like the Arrow universe. But like not to put down CW shows, because I'm a whore for a CW show. You can tell the difference in the first episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and the rest of it. And like you saying that the pilot was made in like a different, like
it was made for a different network. I want to say it's Showtime.
That makes sense to me. Like that tracks. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. But I need to go eat. I'm starving because it's like 7:15.
Okay. All right. I gotta go run. So.
Okay. I just got a text about running, and you said that. That was funny.
LOL. Jill, where can people find us?
On Instagram and TikTok, we are at Thoughts Shared Podcast, and I am at It's Chill Haze on all social media platforms.
And I'm Katie. I'm at Complete Katie on Instagram and Katiefornia on TikTok. And I just looked it up and it was Showtime.
Knew it.
All right.
I didn't know that, but now we know.
Until next time. Goodbye.
Bye.